Today we're talking about things that watch people, watch collectors, watch enthusiasts get bent out of shape on that really don't matter. I know a lot of people talk about their pet peeves, things like wearing NATO straps on dress watches or wearing your watch on the inside of your wrist. These are all things that I've actually talked about here on my channel, but today we're talking about those pet peeves that really don't matter, and I have a few to go through, so let's start with my number one tip. The first one I'm going to start with is in-house movements. There are a lot of people out there who, when buying a watch, if it's a lot of money, they want an in-house movement. And I think a lot of people put a lot of stress on getting a watch with an in-house movement. And when they see a base movement like an Etta, a Le Joux Perret, or a Sellita inside of a watch that cost more than $1,000, they immediately go crazy because it's not an in-house movement. An in-house movement is nice to have. There are a lot of pros to getting an in-house movement. One of those is, of course, they're great to look at. You're not looking at the same movement over and over again. A Sellita movement, an Etta movement, they all look the same. However, an in-house movement looks different. There's different components, different finishing. Sometimes they're a little bit more creative. So that makes a lot of sense. It's unique. And when you flip over your watch that you paid a lot of money for, you want to see something unique. However, to the flip side of that uniqueness could be a bad thing. When you're talking about in-house movements, they are far less reliable depending on the manufacturer, and sometimes the finishing isn't all that good because, again, it depends on the manufacturer, the price point, and where it's actually manufactured. Also, in-house movements cost a lot more money. When brands develop their own in-house movement, they pass that cost on to the customer. That's how they make the money to pay for that in-house movement. So you're paying way more money for a movement that really doesn't do anything that much different from a standard base movement. Also, since they tend to be less reliable, they're harder to service because less people know how to service them, and then of course they will need service more often. Today's video is brought to you by Chronograbs. If you guys are sick of paying high fees when buying and selling on places like eBay and Chrono24, check out chronograbs.com, where currently there are absolutely no fees buying or selling. That means you get a better price when you are buying and getting a better price when you are selling. So definitely check out chronograbs.com, an enthusiast-based marketplace started by John P. of the John P. YouTube channel, and currently the only marketplace that offers no fees. Definitely check them out at chronograbs.com. The next pet peeve is definitely more controversial. This is something that I fall into very often. I like to have a watch that has more than 100 meters of water resistance. I know that doesn't matter because I'm never going to actually use all of that water resistance, but I know there are a lot of people out there, if it doesn't have more than 100 meters of water resistance, a screwed-in crown, and a screwed-in caseback, they get upset. However, if you look at this logically, 100 meters of water resistance is enough. You're never going to use 100 meters of water resistance in your day-to-day unless you are a professional diver. That's really the only situation where you would need over 100 meters of water resistance. It's good for showering, it's good for light swimming, you can go to the ocean, do really almost anything with a watch with 100 meters of water resistance. Technically, you don't need a screwed-in crown and you don't need a screwed-in caseback. I think the screwed-in caseback is somewhat nice to have. That screwed-in crown is definitely not necessary, especially if you're still getting 100 meters of water resistance. A lot of people argue that a screwed-in crown is good to have so that you don't get water egress into the case. However, if you leave your crown unscrewed, water is going to get in anyway. A non-screwed-in crown or a screwed-in crown, it's just as easy to leave unscrewed as it is to leave your crown popped out. It doesn't really matter. You could do either and then get water into your case. So the whole crown thing is definitely not a great argument. The next pet peeve, I could argue either way. A lot of people say that they like a closed caseback versus an open caseback. And I think there is only one situation where a closed caseback is 100% or almost 100% better than having an open caseback, and that's when you have a quartz movement. Although there are certain quartz movements that, if they are an open caseback, they're actually not bad looking and they're fun to turn over and look at from time to time. But having an open caseback where you can see the movement when you have a mechanical movement, I think is almost always better. There are certain situations when I think it's not. Those situations are when you have a standard movement that is completely undecorated and unsigned, specifically when a rotor is unsigned. I think that is the one time when you have an automatic movement that you should probably close up the caseback if you're not signing the movement with the brand name. If you have an NH35 and there's no signature on that rotor, and you haven't done anything at all to make it special in any way, you should close up the caseback. If not, if you have signed that rotor, put an open caseback. That's how I feel about this. I think there are a lot of people, for one reason or another, every time I make a video about a watch with a open caseback, there's always one or two comments where people are like, I wish this had a closed caseback. I have no idea why that is. I don't get it, but to each his own. The next two pet peeves that I want to talk about really apply to used watches or watches on the gray market or the secondary market. The first one is box and papers. Having box and papers is not all that important. Yes, if you can get box and papers and two watches are priced exactly the same, one doesn't have them and one does, get the one with the box and papers. However, if you could save money on a watch that you know you're going to keep, get the one without the box and papers and spend less money. Now, I know some people will argue this and say, you got to have the box and papers, and I get it. You maybe want a complete set. It's not like you carry around the box and papers with you when you show someone your watch and say, look at my watch, I have everything for it as well. Here it is. Also, like I said, you can save money on watches that don't have box and papers, as long as you are paying somewhat less than a one that is complete. And if you ever want to sell it, you could sell it for less because you paid less money. So you won't take a big beating when you go to sell it in the secondary market if you end up not being happy with the watch. So box and papers, something that I've always wanted to get, but I don't think is always necessary when buying on the secondary market. And I know a lot of people go crazy about this and they want a perfect watch every time. And speaking about the perfect watch, a lot of people harp on condition. They want a watch that is absolutely in perfect condition. A friend of mine was buying a Black Bay 58 and he wanted one in absolute mint condition. He didn't want one brand new, but he wanted a used one in mint condition. And I told him there is no reason to buy one in absolute mint condition. You're paying top dollar for this watch that is used on the secondary market for no reason. Buy one that maybe has a couple of scratches on it. Sometimes you see a watch that isn't in mint condition and it's listed for less money. You can always save money if it's not in mint condition. There are a lot of people who really stress on these, and it doesn't matter if they're going to wear the watch or not. They try and get the best condition that they possibly can get. If you're going to wear a watch, you're eventually going to put scratches on that watch. Maybe you want to be the first person who puts those scratches on the watch. I kind of get that. Then you might as well just spend a little bit more money and buy brand new. If you're looking to get a watch that is used or on the secondary market, check out ones that are in that mid-range that aren't completely beat up but do have a couple of blemishes. You will save a lot more money on those watches versus the ones that are in mint condition. So those are some pet peeves that I think are a little bit silly and I don't think make all that much sense. There are a lot more out there. I want to hear from you guys. Tell me down in the comment section some pet peeves that you know that some of your friends who are watch collectors or watch collectors in general do that you think are a little bit silly. Like the fact that I said that someone wears their watch on the inside of their wrist. That kind of bothers me. It's a pet peeve of mine when I see someone wearing a cheap watch or an expensive watch with the face on the inside of their wrist, it does irk me a little bit. However, it really doesn't matter. Again, that's another pet peeve that I have, but it really doesn't matter. Tell me one that you have down in the comment section below. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. I'll catch you guys in the next video.